He was shivering under a broken streetlight, clutching a rusted toolbox like it was the only thing he had left. To most people, he was invisible, just another homeless man trying to survive another cold night. But then, out of nowhere, a sleek black car screeched to a stop beside him. Inside sat a billionaire, breathless and desperate, shouting for help. The cameras, the crowds, the flashing lights, it all faded. In that moment, it was just two men from opposite worlds, one with nothing to his name, the other with everything money could buy, except peace. What happened next would flip both their lives upside down. Because the man everyone ignored, the one they called worthless, was about to fix more than a broken machine. He was about to expose a truth the world pretends not to see. How did a homeless man become the only one who could save a billionaire? This is the story they never expected to tell. But before we begin, tell me, where are you watching this from? For years, Elijah had been the man people crossed the street to avoid. Once a skilled mechanic with his own small garage, he'd lost everything after a series of misfortunes, a fire, medical bills, and one cruel twist of fate that left him on the streets. Now, he spent his days fixing broken radios and old bikes for a few dollars, sleeping under a bridge near the edge of the city. He wasn't lazy. He wasn't dangerous. But people didn't see that. They only saw the dirt on his hands, the torn jacket, and the skin color that made others look away faster. Still, Elijah carried a quiet dignity, a belief that somehow, someday, he could fix his life again, just like he fixed everything else that was broken. Every morning, he watched the city wake up, the business suits, the coffee cups, the polished cars, all rushing past him. He'd whisper to himself, "One day." But that day never seemed to come. Then, one rainy night, as thunder cracked through the sky, Elijah noticed something unusual. A car, expensive, spotless, and far from where it belonged, was stranded on the side of the road. Its hazard lights blinked like a silent cry for help. He hesitated, soaked and shivering. Something told him this wasn't just another car. Something about that moment felt different. Elijah stepped closer to the stranded car, rain dripping from his hood. The engine was still running, sputtering weakly. Through the tinted glass, he saw a man inside, expensive suit, watch gleaming, panic in his eyes. The man glanced up, and for a split second, Elijah saw fear. Not fear of the storm, but of him. Elijah raised his hands slightly, trying to look harmless. "You need help," he called out through the rain. The man hesitated before unlocking the door. The moment Elijah leaned in to look under the hood, headlights appeared in the distance, security vehicles from the gated estate nearby. Within seconds, two guards jumped out, shouting at him to step away. "Back off! Don't touch that car!" One yelled, hand hovering over his holster. Elijah tried to explain, his voice shaking, "I was just trying to help." But they weren't listening. One guard grabbed his arm, twisting it hard. The billionaire, Mr. Langford, as Elijah later learnt, stepped out, trying to speak, but the guards ignored even him. To them, Elijah wasn't a good Samaritan. He was a threat. The rain poured harder, drowning out the chaos. People from nearby condos started filming. Someone muttered, "He's stealing." Another whispered, "Probably casing the area." Elijah's chest tightened. He'd been here before, in different places, at different times, but it always ended the same way. He was guilty first, human second. Finally, Mr. Langford shouted, "Stop! He's helping me!" The guards froze, embarrassed. They released Elijah, who stumbled back, drenched and humiliated. Langford apologized, but the words felt empty. The guards' eyes said what they couldn't: "You don't belong here." Elijah fixed the car anyway. In silence, he worked the way he always had, careful, patient, and focused. Within minutes, the engine roared back to life. Langford stood there, watching him, trying to make sense of the man who expected nothing in return. But just as Elijah stepped away, a police cruiser pulled up. Someone had called them. Two officers approached, their tone sharp. "We got a report of a suspicious individual tampering with a vehicle." Langford tried to intervene again, But Elijah saw the look in their eyes. He knew how this story usually went. His hands trembled as one officer asked for ID. "I don't have one," Elijah admitted quietly. That was enough. They turned him around, cuffed his wrists, and pushed him toward the car. Langford protested louder this time, demanding they stop, identifying himself as the car's owner. But the officers didn't listen until they ran the plates. When they finally released Elijah, one muttered, "Next time, stay where you belong." The crowd had grown by then, phones recording, whispers spreading. Elijah kept his head low, jaw tight. He didn't shout. He didn't fight. He just walked away, the rain masking the sting in his eyes. Langford called after him, but Elijah didn't turn back. That night, Elijah found shelter under the same bridge where he always slept. But he couldn't close his eyes. The words, the looks, the humiliation, they played over and over in his mind. Across town, Langford sat in his mansion, unable to shake the image of that soaked, handcuffed man who had saved him without asking for a thing. Something inside him shifted. For the first time, he saw the world beyond his glass walls, the world Elijah lived in. And as dawn broke, Elijah would soon learn that this encounter wasn't over. The same man whose guards had treated him like a criminal was about to come looking for him. Days passed, and Elijah tried to forget. But the memory of that night, the cuffs, the rain, the eyes full of judgment, clung to him like a shadow. Then one morning, as he sat by the bridge repairing a child's broken bicycle, a black car pulled up again. The same one. Langford stepped out, this time without guards or tinted glass. He looked uncertain, almost nervous, clutching a small envelope. "I've been looking for you," he said quietly. Elijah didn't answer. He'd learned that apologies came easy for people who never had to live with the consequences. Langford knelt beside him, placing a business card and a check on the ground. "You didn't deserve what happened. I want to help, maybe get you back on your feet." Elijah looked at the paper. The amount was enough to change his life. But something inside him twisted. "You think money fixes this?" His voice cracked. "You think writing a check erases the way they looked at me?" Langford hesitated, realizing how small his gesture really was. Before he could respond, a patrol car rolled up again. The same officers. They recognized Elijah instantly. One leaned out the window. "We told you to stay away from this area." Langford stepped forward. "He's with me," he said firmly. But the officer smirked. "Sure he is." The moment stretched, long, heavy, dangerous. Elijah stood still, hands visible, heart pounding. He'd done nothing wrong. But he knew how quickly things could spiral. The tension in the air was suffocating, even Langford could feel it now. Then, in a moment that would change everything, Langford pulled out his phone and started recording. He didn't shout a rag, just filmed. "Go ahead," he said quietly to the officers. "Tell me again why he's a threat." For the first time, Elijah wasn't the one being watched. The power shifted. The officers froze, realizing who they were talking to, the billionaire whose foundation funded their precinct's new vehicles. Silence fell. Then, with a stiff nod, they backed off, muttering something about a misunderstanding. Elijah stood there, soaked in disbelief. 4 years, he had endured the same treatment alone, no witnesses, no voice, no justice. Now, for the first time, someone had seen it happen through his eyes. Langford turned to him. "This isn't right," he said softly. "People need to see this." But Elijah's voice was steady and low. "They've seen it before. They just choose to forget." The rain began again, light at first, then heavy, washing over both men as they stood in silence. Langford's camera was still recording, its red light blinking like a pulse. In that moment, the lines between privilege and pain blurred. One man finally saw what the other had been living all along. And for Elijah, that night wasn't about being seen, it was about finally being believed. The world would soon know what happened under that bridge. But what they'd do with the truth was another story. Unexpectedly, the video from that night went viral. Langford uploaded it himself, refusing to stay silent. Within hours, millions had seen the moment a homeless black man was nearly arrested for trying to help. News anchors debated it, hashtags trended, and people argued online, some outraged, others in denial. But for Elijah, it wasn't about going viral. He didn't want fame or pity. He wanted change, real change. When reporters found him a few days later, sleeping near the same bridge, he didn't ask for donations or sympathy. He just said, "I fix things. That's what I do. I just wish people looked at us the same way they look at broken machines, worth repairing, not discarding." Langford used his influence to open a small community workshop in Elijah's name, a place where people could learn skills, find work, and rebuild their lives. But Elijah didn't see himself as a hero. He still walked the same streets, still faced the same looks. What had changed wasn't how the world treated him overnight, but how the world saw itself in his story. In boardrooms, classrooms, and kitchen tables, people started asking the same uneasy questions. Why do we fear the ones who've already lost everything? Why does skin color still decide who gets believed, and who gets blamed? Langford kept visiting the workshop, often sitting quietly while Elijah taught others to mend what was broken: bikes, radios, engines, lives. There was something poetic in it, a man once labeled worthless now teaching others that worth doesn't fade, even when the world refuses to see it. But the truth is, for every Elijah whose story gets told, there are countless others who don't make the headlines. People who live the same humiliation, the same fear, every single day, without a camera, without a witness, without justice. As the video fades out, one image lingers: Elijah standing by the workshop door, wiping grease from his hands, looking straight into the camera, not angry, not bitter, just tired, and still hopeful. He didn't fix the system that night. No one man could. But he sparked something that made the powerful uncomfortable and the forgotten seen. Because sometimes, it takes the man with nothing to remind the world what humanity is worth. And maybe that's the real question we need to ask ourselves. If a homeless man could fix what a billionaire couldn't, what's stopping the rest of us from fixing the world we all broke? If this story moved you, take a second to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear it today. Every view helps these stories reach more people, and reminds the world that compassion still matters.